It's Wednesday on Daily Delivery, and a busy one at that. I am your host, Michael Rand. Hope you guys are having a great day out there and are ready for a tremendous show. Lots going on. Like I said, Randy Johnson from the Star Tribune joins me here in a little bit to talk Gopher football. Coming off a big win. They have a bye week this weekend, but 2 wins over USC and UCLA. Maybe they don't mind Big Ten expansion if it means they are getting into the win column, really changing the narrative of their season. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the continued ascent of veteran quarterback Max Brosmer. That will lead me into a segment with Gopher women's basketball as well. I stopped by their access period on Tuesday. Got some interesting stuff about the impact they expect to have this season from some of their transfers. They're adding some veteran depth to a team that got off to a really good start last season but couldn't withstand injuries. Had a surge at the end in the postseason WNIT, but looking for bigger and better things this year, and depth will be a big part of that. So we'll get some women's basketball thoughts in there, some voices in there as well from head coach Dawn Plitzuweit and players Sophie Hart and Mara Braun. Chip Scoggins will join me here in a little bit, too. He was out in California for the Gophers game, but he was also there to visit with Gophers quarterback recruit Jackson Kollock, so we'll talk to Chip about that. That was the subject of his most recent Football Across Minnesota feature. The Lynx, huge Game 3 tonight at Target Center. I'll get to that at the end of the show. We had a Vikings trade. I'll get to that in a minute. That's not even everything. What did I miss? The goalie goal. Filip Gustavsson, wild goalie, tremendous game on Tuesday, punctuated by a goalie goal. The first one in Wild history, and kind of the perfect storm for it, right? The Wild are up 3-1 late in the game. There's like 9 seconds left. Gustavsson gets the puck. The Blues have an empty net, drops the puck after retrieving it, and just flicks it the length of the ice right down the middle. Goal. 4-1 Wild win. Only the 15th goalie in NHL history to score a goal. Just a tremendous moment for the Wild, a tremendous moment for the NHL. Everybody, it's like when an offensive lineman scores a touchdown in the NFL or something like that. A goalie goal is so rare. It's such a unicorn event, such a perfect storm of things, right? Because you don't want to do it if you're only up a goal and maybe there's like a minute left because you might get an icing. Something might happen where you flub it and the other team has a quick opportunity to score. But the game he was having, he put them in the position to do it, right? Because they were up 3-1 in part because of his tremendous work, saving shots. And he's been great already so far this season for the Wild, right? This is 3 games out of 4 that he started, 2 wins and an overtime loss, hasn't given up more than 2 goals in any of those games. That's probably the biggest takeaway from this game, right? That he is on a roll to start the season. I mean, hey, if he scores as many goals every game as he gives up, I think the Wild are going to be in pretty good shape. That is my deep hockey analysis for right now. But joking aside, how well he is playing at the start of the year is a huge sign for the Wild, because everybody needs good goaltending, but they did not really have it last year. It was inconsistent. He did not have the year last season that he had 2 years ago, and that was frankly one of the biggest reasons the Wild went from being a playoff team to being out of the playoffs. They just didn't have that goalie that could stop the bleeding. That if you lose a game or two, that a goalie could come in and win you a 3-2 or a 2-1 game. They just lost a lot of those games last year. Those turned into losing streaks. Dean Evison gets fired. They bring in John Hines. But now Gustavsson back. Sounds like he did some off-season work to get himself in the right spot coming into this season. And look, it was going to be a crowded net. It still is. You got Marc-Andre Fleury, the veteran, back for one final year. You got Jesper Wallstedt, the up-and-comer pushing for playing time. Gustavsson is the one kind of in the middle, the one that's more kind of in the mid-career, trying to reestablish what he built 2 years ago. Is he a long-term solution here? Is he a trade candidate if he keeps playing well and Wallstedt takes over? I don't know. That's the question for the future. Right now, the question for the present is, can he keep it up? He's been great in these first 3 games, helping the Wild, through the first 4. They haven't lost in regulation yet. They've taken 6 points in the first 4 games, and he has been a big part of that. Obviously, wasn't just him in that game. They moved the puck well. They got some timely goals, some timely offense, spread it around. Ryan Hartman had a nice early goal. Kirill Kaprizov was strong with a couple of assists. So everybody playing at a pretty high level for them right now, letting them withstand injury to Jared Spurgeon early on, things like that. So Gustavsson, the big story. Yes, because of the goalie goal. That's a huge reason for celebration, but more because of how well he is playing in his primary role as a puck stopper, not a puck scorer. Like I said at the jump, the Vikings made a trade. It might seem like a minor move. It kind of is a minor move, but one that I'm not surprised by. It's kind of funny. We got a question to the Access Vikings podcast inbox the other day, which I'm guessing we'll probably answer in greater detail on the Access Vikings podcast later this week. We're recording one today, and we're recording the mailbag episode Friday. So listen for that wherever you get your podcast, probably the same place you get this one. Cam Akers, acquired by the Vikings from the Texans. They had him last year. They got him in a trade last year as well. He hurt his Achilles, out for the year last year, but he's back. Not surprised, because the question we got was, if the Vikings are going to make any kind of trade deadline moves, and the trade deadline is just a few weeks away, what position do you think is most likely that they add? And I'm looking at the options the person gave us, and it's like, corner, defensive tackle. I think maybe O-line was in there, like guard, and then running back. And I'm thinking running back feels kind of important to me. Another veteran felt important to me, just because you don't know how durable Aaron Jones is going to be. He's, trending probably to not play this week if you had to guess. And then if he's not playing this week, he's probably not playing next week either, because it's a short week. They play Thursday against the Rams after that huge game Sunday against the Lions. It's a guy that they know. They've already had him last year. They already, Kevin O'Connell, Wes Phillips, very familiar with his style from being with him with the Rams, in 2020 and 2021. So you think about that, and you think about the context of their season. They just felt like they were maybe one veteran running back short. I like Ty Chandler, what he can do, in open space, but I'm not that impressed with Ty Chandler as just an every down back. He's not a great blocker. It seems like he misses some of the holes that Aaron Jones finds. So maybe they're looking for kind of that veteran to settle things down a little bit, to come in, get them 4 or 5 yards like Aaron Jones was doing so much earlier this season, kind of bridge that gap until Jones is healthy, and kind of give them that one extra back as insurance, but also as kind of a work share until they can get him back, and until they can kind of get to reestablish their flow. So I think that was a good move. All it costs you is basically a swap of a 6th and 7th round pick. That's not a big price to pay. I know they don't have a ton of draft picks next year. They've already given up a lot in, past trades, but that's a small price to pay to solidify a position, especially when you're 5-0. It's Football Across Minnesota time with Star Tribune columnist Chip Scoggins. Chip, you got a hot one this week. You were out in California talking to Gopher football recruit Jackson Kollock. Gophers beat UCLA out there. That can't hurt, although it was a little tension in that game, but also showing that how important a good quarterback is. And obviously Max Brosmer is not going to be around forever, probably just about 6 more games this season. So the future of this position is a big deal. Obviously recruiting, there's no bigger position to recruit. They've already got one good one on the roster right now in Drake Lindsay, but what can you tell me about Jackson Kollock?
Yeah, really athletic kid. He's like 6'4", 215 pounds, from Laguna Beach, which is about 50 miles south of Los Angeles. Really just smart, mature, great leader. Everybody at the school raves about him, putting up big numbers. Laguna Beach is not a big football community. Kids there surf or skateboard. He came back as a sophomore. He went to one of the big programs there in L.A., trying to, because that's what he was told. You need to do that to have a high profile to play college football. And he came back. They had not won it. They called it a CIF, California Interscholastic Federation. That's kind of their MSHL that we have here. They had not won a championship in their division since 1946. He came back and led them to one in 2022 as a sophomore. And he's kind of a late bloomer. A tragic story with his family. He didn't play football growing up. He was the oldest of 4 kids at the time, and he was 12 when he had a sister who passed away of sudden SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome.
Yeah.
She was 32 days old.
Oh, wow.
Just died in her sleep. So that really obviously turned the family's life upside down. He went through some real struggles. He was 12 years old, so entering those teenage years. He was a terrific baseball player, a pitcher, but just kind of lost interest in baseball and really was struggling with his emotions and grief. So someone said, you should try football. Went out for football and really found a place that he could channel his emotions and all the things he was going through, fell in love with it, was really talented at it. And so started getting some private training. He actually went to an 8th grade. They have a school out there, which kind of sounds like IMG Academy, but it's a sports academy called Togethership, where kids go to school and get elite training. But former NFL player Jordan Palmer, a quarterback, trains quarterbacks there, either that are in the NFL or coming out for a combine. And the year he was there, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence were working out there. So in the mornings, he would go catch passes from Josh Allen, and he would watch these quarterbacks. And so they kind of helped him really understand the position and learn kind of the more about it. And so he's just a tremendously hard worker who is driven by the loss of his sister, and he learned that life is precious and you don't waste moments, and that's kind of fueled him throughout this. And she passed away in December, but her birthday was in November. So in November, he always writes her initials on his cheek in the eye black that you see football players wear. So just a really sharp family. And they've since had another child after her death, a son. So they're a family of 6. It was Jackson's the oldest, and just a really cool kid, really mature, great athlete. I watched him play Friday night, and he was dealing with kind of a minor arm injury, so he wasn't really airing it out. He threw more short passes, but incredibly athletic, really fast. He seemed like he was at his best when he was on the run and throwing on the run. So I think he has a bright future.
Maybe last thing on it, how did he wind up with the Gophers? How did he choose Minnesota?
So he initially committed to Washington. And then when they had the coaching change, obviously the coach there went to Alabama. And so it kind of reopened his commitment. And Minnesota had been recruiting him all along. Greg Harbaugh, the offense coordinator, recruits out in California, had a relationship with him. And so when that coaching change happened, he kind of pivoted to Minnesota, and he really likes the coaching staff. And they have a unfortunate connection with PJ in terms of, PJ lost a child right after birth too. And that's something the mom talked about, that she thinks that Jackson appreciates that he has a head coach that kind of understands a part of his life that he still deals with and he's gone through. And so, but they recruit him all along, and they're recruiting California heavy now. And so he's, 247 Sports ranks him as the 30th overall quarterback, 30th ranked quarterback in the country. And so he had, multiple power 4 offers now. Yeah. And so I think this is a good get for PJ Fleck and his staff.
Very cool. Chip, appreciate it as always. Always read Chip's Football Across Minnesota feature every week. And we'll do this again next week, Chipper.
Thanks, Mikey. See you, man.
Great stuff from Chip. You can read his entire Football Across Minnesota feature at Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. Sounds like they got a good one here. Jackson Kollock coming in. Drake Lindsay already here. He's the freshman on the team this year. You've got Max Brosmer, the veteran, who's done a tremendous job. We're going to get into Max Brosmer here a little bit more right now with Randy Johnson from the Star Tribune. Randy, I dare say the narrative of this Gophers football season has changed. A couple weeks ago, I was wondering where the next win was going to come from. They're 2-0, to Iowa. They've lost some, tough, close games. Next thing you know, they pull out a win over USC. They almost beat Michigan. Before that, they pull out a win over USC, then come back and beat UCLA last week. UCLA not a good team, but still to win on the road. A lot of Big Ten teams struggling when they have to go out west. all of a sudden it feels like just the conversation around this team has changed pretty dramatically.
Yeah, it sure has. It was a situation where things are starting to get pretty sour. Fans were getting very irritated with the results and frankly with the coach. Basically, PJ obviously needed that win against USC that gave him a win over ranked opponent for the first time in a highly ranked opponent for the first time in a while. They won one last year at Iowa when Iowa was in the top 25. But and then they go out to UCLA. I mean, basically a feel-good story out there. They bring so many fans out there, around estimates of 15,000 Gopher fans at the game, and basically the Gopher fans pretty much took over the city of Pasadena during the time out there. So it was a pretty good win, especially the way they got it, coming back from a 10-point halftime deficit and then rallying again with scoring the winning touchdown with 27 seconds left, and then Coy Parrish sealing another one with a interception on a Hail Mary pass.
I want to get back to Coy Parrish and a couple of details from the game, but what was it? Do you feel like it's like this nostalgia for what the Rose Bowl means? Is it the weather? Is it just they never play there? Why did they travel so well there? Because I don't feel like they travel that well usually.
They've changed that, I would say, over the past few times. They've gone to places where they haven't been before or hadn't been in quite a while. I go back to the Colorado trip in 2021. That was one where they were loud and proud there, the fan base. And then you go to North Carolina last year, a very strong Gophers showing there for the fans. And then, this one, obviously, you have the history of the Rose Bowl. You have the great weather. You have an easy to get to flight airport type of situation. It all came together, and then obviously the beautiful weather there the whole time too. That'll draw a lot of people.
How do we explain how they've been able to change the arc of their season? Is it just better play? Obviously, not giving up a ton of rushing yards, but where was the improvement within that you saw that allows them to get over the hump against USC, come back against UCLA, turn these close games into wins?
I think they're playing better and smarter as a team. They're starting to own a lot more of the big moments. That's been a situation. They the past couple weeks they haven't made the big mistakes like at Michigan, where they had a fumble and then a blocked punt that ended up turning into touchdowns by Michigan. What they've done, they fell behind this one again, 10-0 in the first half. And they did not play well in the first half. But they, pretty much methodically dug themselves out and just played a sharper game in the second half, and then had another response when after UCLA retook the lead at 17-14. They had the ball the first time. They ended up having to punt, but they pinned UCLA down inside the 5, and that was pretty good strategy. Forced UCLA use all 3 of its timeouts and stopped them on third down, got it back, and then drove the 61 yards to win it.
Got to admit, I was yelling at my TV, "What are you doing? Why are you punting?" But it worked. It worked because they were able to pin him deep. They were able to get the ball back. It felt like I thought they should have gone for it on 4th and 6 from the UCLA 45. But to their credit, that was exactly how you script it, right? You punt it, you pin him deep. You get a 3 and out, you get the ball back in pretty good field position. And then Max Brosmer, who's been really good in these kind of winning time situations, does it again. Why has he been so good, particularly in fourth quarters, hurry up type situations?
I just think he's calm. He knows what he knows the plays so well. He knows his checkdowns, and he can execute those. Basically, he's not put the ball in harm's way a lot in those situations. He's found his guys, and he's gotten good protection too. I would say that's a big part of it. But I was just looking at stats. This weekend when after this game, in the past 3 fourth quarters, 25 of 35 for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
In that span, he has led 6 fourth quarter touchdown drives. This one on the on third down passes in the second half, fourth quarter, 6 of 6. Then on the winning drive, 5 of 7 for 52 yards and the touchdown on basically the pass to Darius Taylor out of the backfield was his fourth, maybe fifth read. So it was a situation where Darius was in there for pass protection. It was a situation where if he doesn't have to block anybody, he leaks out of the backfield, and Max finds him sitting there in the flat, and he just had to out sprint the linebacker to the end zone, and that was easily done.
It definitely seemed like he had patience on that. He had the protection, but he definitely had patience to go through his progressions, find Taylor on just, like you said, just a little leak out from the backfield, a little shallow kind of crossing route. It turned out to be into the end zone. But yeah, that's exactly why they got him, right? I mean, this is why you want a experienced veteran quarterback, a guy who's not going to panic in those situations. I mean, he's definitely showing his worth at this point and in why they wanted to go out and get the kind of quarterback that a lot of other teams in the Big Ten have had.
Yeah, one thing too that they've cut down on quite a bit is penalties. That was causing them a lot of problems earlier in the season. They weren't quite as clean Saturday as they were the week before against USC, but in the second half of that game, basically UCLA was a team that was shooting itself in the foot with penalties, and the Gophers were playing clean football and weren't causing themselves a lot of problems, and that ended up paying off pretty well at the end.
Was there any PJ Fleck chatter out there, given the whole UCLA offseason stuff, or was that pretty much dormant at this point?
Yeah, that was pretty much dormant. You didn't hear a whole lot about that. It's a situation where I think people, Deshaun Foster, UCLA's coach, he's a legendary running back for them. Basically, UCLA fans realize that with Deshaun Foster, it's gonna be a longer play to get back to respectability where they want to be. They've had a pretty tough schedule already. And they were dealt a pretty tough hand too when Chip Kelly left in February for the Ohio State offense coordinator job. So it was whoever was going to be coaching was going to be put in a pretty tough situation.
You mentioned Coy Parrish already, 2 interceptions, including the one that sealed it, one that really gave them some momentum too in the first one. Hard to imagine, or we forget, I think, or at least I forget. He's a true freshman, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. You don't usually see guys who are true freshmen, especially this day and age, making the kind of impact he's having.
Yeah, it is kind of it's really remarkable too. He has 40 receptions on the season. That's already tied for second nationally. So he's really made an impact. And the interesting thing is that he didn't join the team until June. He finished his senior year of high school at ESCO, ran track, got a hamstring injury. His whole goal was to win a state championship with his teammates, and didn't happen. But PJ Fleck just raves about it on how quickly he's learned over the summer and through training camp and now into the season.
So they've got a bye week now, and then Maryland here. You start to, every time they go on a little streak, it feels like it changes how you feel about the rest of the season. Now you look at it, you're like, winnable games coming up. How do you feel like they're set up now for the next, kind of coming out of the bye?
Yeah, this next, they have 3 games, 3 games coming out of the bye. Then they have their second bye of the season before the final 2 games. This is going to be a pretty critical stretch to see where they end up bowl wise. They need 2 wins to get to the 6th to get eligible. And that's a situation too. If there are enough bowls, you want to get to more than 6 in case you run out of the number of bowls you can get to. If the Big Ten doesn't have enough, and if there aren't any other openings, but they look like you start with Maryland at home. Maryland just got beat at Northwestern by about 27. So that was that one. You kind of cast some doubt on what type of team Maryland has right now. They go to Illinois. That won't be easy. Brett Bielema, the stat, he's 10-0 against Minnesota. They go to Rutgers, and basically the 8th in Catholic Mass, who was doing pretty well early in the season, managing the games pretty well. Wisconsin just blasted Rutgers last week, and Ethan was 12 of 32 passing. So he's come back to the pack a bit, quite a bit. So that one might, if you can shut down that running game, which Wisconsin did on Kyle Manon guy, the Scarlet Knights star running back. If you can shut him down, you got a pretty good chance to win there. So these three are winnable games. Illinois may be a little bit less so, but they just gave up 49 points to Purdue, and they had to hold them off to win 50-49 in overtime. This is where you can make some hay.
PJ likes to play first one to 20, not first one to 50. I can't imagine how that one's going to go.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more in a couple weeks, Randy. Appreciate it. Go get a little bit of rest, and we'll catch up with you later.
Sounds good, Mike.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Brosmer's been so important for the Gophers this year. Yeah, they've got a bye week this week, a little chance to kind of rest and recuperate, but they're going to need him down the stretch. Seeing the importance of that veteran quarterback, seeing the importance of bringing in that transfer like so many other teams had, kind of connecting the dots with that. I caught up with the Gophers women's basketball team on Tuesday. Kind of a similar situation. They brought in a bunch of transfers, including 3 seniors, to kind of bolster their depth. They didn't have enough depth last season. They kind of faded down the stretch when Mara Braun and Sophie Hart were hurt. Both Mara Braun and Sophie Hart were at the access period on Tuesday. So I wanted to ask them, what is the impact of this newfound depth you have with these transfers? Here is what they had to say.
Yeah, I think we look at, close games, end of games. Just situations like that where I feel like we have a lot more trust in each other and the coaches have a lot more trust. And then, I think there's a lot of value in all of us having this experience now. And then as we have issues on the court, we don't need to rely so heavily on our coaching staff. We're able to kind of self-fix and, figure it out as a team, which I think will help us a lot in games when we have to solve things on the fly.
Yeah, we've just been focused on being a player-led team more so this year, and that's something that coach has really been, harping on us about, and not, looking at her like so said and being like, all right, what do we need to do? But knowing, the ins and outs and X's and O's of what's going on and how we've been viewing the game differently now that we're, juniors and seniors, and how we can help our other teammates just because we've been in the system now for going on the second year.
And head coach Dawn Plitzuweit also was asked a similar question about the impact of the transfers, the impact of depth, especially in late game situations. Here is head coach Dawn Plitzuweit on that same subject.
6 newcomers overall, 2 freshmen, and then 4 transfers. And our 4 transfers, we have 3 seniors actually. So the first part is that has brought us to become an older team in the league, and that's, even just for us, and that's really, really important, more veteran team. So it starts with Alexia, who is a point guard and someone who can apply pressure and get to the rim, a really good passer for us. Jordan, who is someone who is a post player for us and learning how to kind of fit into our system, still coming back from an injury. And then we also have Annika Stewart, who is, we talked about a little bit earlier, who can help us stretch the floor and make things happen. Great leadership abilities too. And then certainly Taylor Woodson, who is someone who obviously is kind of like a hometown kind of kid and really excited to be here and understands what it takes to be in the Big Ten because she's done that, but adds a level of, I think, athleticism, size, versatility to us as well.
Now, kind of a little bit of fun, too. Hart and Braun at the end of their session were asked about the Lynx, the positive impact of their playoff run and how it might carry over to their season, which starts in just a few weeks. They've been practicing for a while. Their first game is in early November. Here's their answer to that question.
We're going to the game on Wednesday. We were lucky enough to get tickets to go, so we'll all be there as a team. That'll be fun. But just seeing that atmosphere and seeing, all right, all these people are Minnesota fans and women's basketball fans. Like, why can't they, come support us as well? So being able to kind of drive that for us a little bit, and knowing that the fans are there, it's just, wanting to get them to come, and just, I think our media and everything around us has been doing a great job of trying to get that attention over here as well, but obviously we have to produce on the court as well, so we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I also think a lot of our, season ticket holders and those fans go to the games, and so my call out to them is try to recruit people, because I know we have a lot of new fans at the Lynx games, and we would love to see you guys, over at the barn, over at Williams, so, come out, keep your basketball rolling.
The rising Lynx tide lifting all boats. You heard those two players saying they are going to be at the game as a team tonight. That brings us to the cooler. Lynx versus New York tonight, Game 3. Can't think of a more pivotal game in this series, although there might be one later in the series as well. Tied 1-1. Lynx got the one in New York, that dramatic comeback in Game 1. They came back in Game 2 but couldn't finish the job. It is vital that they get off to a better start tonight. I know they've been able to rally. I know they don't have any quit in them, but you do not want to constantly be playing from behind. That is a physical and mental toll on a team to constantly have to try to rally and come back. They're going to have their home crowd. Head coach Cheryl Reeve said it's going to be a sellout at Target Center. That means the entire arena, 19,000, filled with screaming Lynx fans instead of screaming Liberty fans. So it should be a tremendous environment, a tremendous opportunity for them to take control of the series again, to go up 2-1, to put themselves on the brink of their 5th WNBA title. Can they do it? We will find out tonight, but I do think that it is vital that they get off to a better start than they have been getting off to in these other 2 games. That will do it for me today. Lavelle E. Neal expected on Thursday's show. Hoping to get Kent Youngblood on Friday's show to talk Lynx ahead of Game 4. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Back at it again tomorrow.